Hey, you big nerds, you big sexy nerds, you. It's been a minute since I've made a video, and you know I like to keep my content fresh. Actually, I don't. I'm very lazy about my content. But I do every once in a while. Sometimes, you know, you just have like all your decks and you want to just get them out and look at them. And I've been feeling that way about my Marseille decks. Because a lot of what I've done in the past year really has been focused on like Waite Smith stuff. You know, my new book. Oh, have I plugged that recently? My new book is about, principally it's about Waite Smith reading. So, it's been a while since I've sort of taken all my Marseille decks out and looked at them, and I thought, let's do it. And then I thought, like, there are plenty of nerds on fellow nerds, I should say, on YouTube and Instagram that I feel like would be down with like what's currently in my world. I think this is all of them. They are in no particular order. The only criteria, this is not all my pip decks. The only criteria I engaged in here was that they have to be principally Marseille inspired. Some of these are Marseille kissed. Johnny Rose might say a whisper of Marseille, but most of them are principally Marseille. So let's get going. And these are literally in no particular order. I have so much, my life is so cluttered. I had a bunch of client readings to do today and like literally had to clean off my reading table, which was just covered with books that I have to read and things I promised I would review and haven't done yet. This is the Marshmallow Marseille, which you know I love because it's the one that I used in Tarot on Earth, my first book. Have I plugged that recently? Is that within reach? Oh, it is. This was my first book, Tower on Earth. And this is all about reading with pip decks. Not specifically Marseille, but certainly you can use it with Marseille. Both are available online at retailers, principally Amazon, near you. So yeah, love the Marshmallow Marseille. This is the first edition, which I gotta say I'm very fond of, and I would never let it go, because though the second edition is very cool with the sort of holographic backs, I really prefer simplicity. So love this one so much. It's actually been a while since I've worked with it. It's got a very summery springtime palette, so I feel like I should bring it down off the shelf. And it lives in this pouch that Kelly Bear made for me. And if you follow her on YouTube and on Instagram, you'll see that she makes these, and they're totes. I think this is like my favorite kind of home for tarot deck, because it's sort of like, it's got the structure of a box. It's got like the plasticity, that's not really the word I mean, but like the malleability of a bag, but it doesn't, things aren't flopping around in here, as it were. So this is, you know, this is a modern drawing of Marseille, but it's very stylish, and I've always really liked it. So yeah, that's that. I don't even know, like I'm really just sort of making this to look at what I have. It's sort of like show and tell at school. You know, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I really am a lover of reading Marseille decks or pip decks generally, just because I find it so freeing, and I just find it so cool. So the next one is this is a go-to. This is like a ride or die. It is always out. This is the Jean Noblet. It's the, what's his name? Jean-Claude Faunois. This is always out. It's a perfect Marseille for me because it is, first of all, it's the first extant, to use a grad school word, Marseille deck. This is obviously a redrawing of it, but it is the first one that remains. And the size of it is so great. And one of my favorite books about Marseille by J.M. David uses this deck as its sort of principal deck, and I just really love the lines of it. It sort of feels like what it it just feels like Marseille to me, and I love that it's kind of the Marseille in that way. So this is one that's always out. You can see how sort of worn it is. It's like a workhorse. It is absolutely possible to riffle shuffle this. It's a bit of a workout to do it. But that's another reason why I love this particular one, because it is easy to shuffle. And I just prefer to get a riffle shuffle on a deck because you just get more of a mix more quickly. This is one I haven't really spent much time with. I got this, it was an independent deck. It's the Stone Marseille. I have a walkthrough of this, I believe, or an unboxing of it. It was a really cool color palette. 2019. So if you're looking for this, I don't know if it's still in print, but it's the liliesstonequarry.com. And it's got this great black gilding. It looks like satin sheets, which I know sounds tacky, but I love both the sheets and the gilding. Where's the frickin' front of the deck? Why are these backwards? I must have done a reading and just put the cards upside down. So here's what I love about this deck. It's like a midnight Marseille. It's all dark colors. But here's what I don't like about the Marseille of this one. The majors were all sort of hand done. The minors are very digital and very sort of texture free. So you can see the art on Force here looks handmade, but then you get this sort of very flat digital pip. So though it is very pretty and I really like the color palette, it just doesn't, it was just, the pips were disappointing. I recognize the reality of why one would do it that way. It was just a thing that I felt like, But it's still nice. It's just, when you have so many Marseille decks, it's like, I don't know. I kind of, it's not that I don't like it. I just sort of felt let down by that aspect of it. Now, one of the problems with all of these decks, especially the modern ones, is that they're all white. And there isn't a single that I know of a diverse Marseille, which I've really been waiting for because I feel like the world needs it, people want it, and let's do it. You know what I mean? I do have one by an Asian artist, but this is not a Marseille. I just brought it out. This is a Rosenwald, which is sort of pre-Marseille, but it's a really colorful redrawing of the Rosenwald Tarot, which is Marseille adjacent, and it does have people of color in it. So there are some skin tones here. It's not perfect, and it isn't Marseille specifically, but it was thoughtful enough to not be entirely white skin. And so I think that is successful, and I like it a lot. This is one that you get through GameCrafter. And I will say GameCrafter has really upped their quality with their cards. So this one I really like. It actually does come with a little white book that talks about the cards. And I like the back. The boxes, I will say GameCrafter, but like most tuck boxes suck anyway. But I like this. So not Marseille, but it is the closest thing to Marseille that has more than just white people in it. Oh, come on. Tuck boxes. We've all become such snobs, but seriously, what a scourge. All right, that goes up there. The CBD, this is the one that I usually recommend if someone says, I'm just interested in learning Marseille and I'm just starting out, what deck do you think I should get? And I recommend this one both because I really like Yoav Ben-Dov's book, The Open Reading, which I think is now published by Llewellyn as The Marseille Tarot Revealed. First of all, it is a reproduction of the Conver, which is sort of it's really a sort of standard classic Marseille that people reference. It's beautifully designed. Yoav Ben-Dov really worked to create something authentic, but that also felt fresh and appropriate to modern eyes. And you can read all about what he did on his website, and I recommend reading about it. And this is a mass market deck. It was republished by US Games. He had originally self-published before he passed. This was published shortly after he passed. But it is absolutely everything you need out of a Marseille deck if you want to learn. And it's affordable, it's easy to get. The size is really nice, it's tarot card size. It's US Games cardstock, so it's just sort of right on, you know what I mean? And to me, it's like the go-to Marseille for anyone who's starting, not just for people who are starting out, but if you want to start out, it's like, to me, it's the best option. I would avoid the Jodorowsky Chemois Marseille. They added stuff into the images that wasn't originally there. I am not a fan of Jodorowsky, however people say it. I don't like his book, and I don't like his reputation. But he was Bendov's teacher, so I'll grant him that. So this is the CBD. This is a US Games deck now. There is a copyright on it. It's very tiny. It's interesting that they do that. I mean, Bendov actually put all the images up on his site as, what's the word I'm looking for? Creative Commons. Proper copyright. So he essentially said anyone can use these images for non-commercial use without cost. So you could theoretically go to the website and download all the images and print them yourself if you want something homemade. So that's another reason why it's good. But, you know, it's just sort of like, it's an interesting thing that US Games does with copyright that I don't fully understand. It's like, this is Bendov's intellectual property, his estate's intellectual property now, which is Creative Commons license. What exactly are they copywriting? The product, the box, the printing? I don't know. Anyway. So this is Tarot de Maria Celia, and it's another one that I recommend for folks who want to start out with Marseille but don't like the coloration of traditional Marseille decks. And this is by Leonard Jim Narciso, who's a Filipino artist. I remember I chatted with him a little bit on Facebook after I initially did my walkthrough of this deck because he hadn't seen it yet. He hadn't gotten his copy because it had like international shipping or shipping beyond, you know, the borders of the continental United States is so slow. But it's Marseille with a decidedly like summery, spring, warm color palette. So that's the main difference. It's also playing card size. It also comes in a tin. We love this deck. Beautiful back. I did edge this one in a sort of rosy color to match. And it feels I don't edge Marseille decks very often because they're so, like the backgrounds are always white. So it doesn't really need it. But this one really looked nice. So this is a really good one. I actually used this for Council of 13 spread today for a client. And I hadn't used it in a while, and I was reminded of how much I truly do like this deck a lot. So, by a person of color, if not depicting people of color necessarily. Although you could argue it's a bit more ambiguous in this particular deck. So this is a favorite of mine. Again, this is mass market. It's another US Games deck, so it's easy to find. It's not super expensive, so it's a good choice if you don't like Marseille colorings. What's next? Here's another one that's sort of not really Marseille, but like is kissed with Marseille. This is the Trionfi della Luna by Patrick Valenza of Deviant Moon fame. So this is like the Marseille through a horror lens, or through a grim, spooky lens. I usually only bring this out around October, but I like it. This is the Italian version. He did eventually do a French version, which I kind of wish I had gotten instead, but by that point I already had it and I didn't want to buy it again. Not that I don't like it, I just don't need 2 copies of it just because of a different language. He's released different editions of this, sort of like with negative images, like the colorations are negative so that the lights are dark and the darks are light. This isn't for everybody. Oh, you know what I didn't bring down was another similar deck, which is the, I can't even remember the name of it. It's another sort of spooky deck, but I've done enough videos with that one in anyway. So this is the Trionfi della Luna by Patrick Valenza, and it's fun. It's very on brand for that like Deviant Moon thing. I actually prefer this art style of his to the Deviant Moon. Deviant Moon's not a deck that I'm drawn to at all. I've never purchased it. I've never really liked it very much, but I do like this a lot. What the hell is the name of that other deck? I mean, I can see it from here. I'm just too lazy to get up and get it. This is another, so at a certain point I started wanting something, so most of the decks that I like are reproductions, or not reproductions, they're redrawings, like the CBD, like the Jean Noblette that I showed you earlier. Where the hell did I even put that? Oh, right here. Eventually I just wanted something that started looking, or I started wanting something that looked more like what would have been used, or what it would have looked like in new printings. And so this is the Tarot Francois Gasmont 1840, which is a deck that was made in Geneva, Switzerland. And this is one of my favorites. This is another one that's always out. First of all, this Robin's Egg Blue back just gives me everything I need. I love this color. And the color palette of this deck for a Marseille is very rich. The greens are really unique. The blues are really unique. And it's got that quality, of sort of the messier printing that would have been possible and likely during the periods that these were made, because of course this is a reproduction of a deck in a museum. This is an Yves Reynaud deck. These decks tend to be on the more collector's edition sort of quality. So they're a little thicker. Like it's not like a US Games cardstock. But it is, I do riffle shuffle this, and it's very shuffleable, and I'll show you in a sec. It's thick. It's on the edge of being difficult to riffle shuffle, but I do it. And you can just see how nice the colors are. They really just are gorge. I love this one. This is when I'm looking for like a reproduction deck. This is the one I generally pull. And it just, I used to think Marseille decks were so ugly, and they're not. They're really beautiful. I think they're really kinds of perfect and for what they are, and I love reading with them. If I had to choose, I would choose Marseille over Waite Smith every time. I read Waite Smith principally now because I just want people to have something to look at. So this actually shuffles really nicely, and it overhands nicely too. But I just love that Robin's Egg Blue back. It is so gorgeous. So I remember, I think it was Obsidian Spirit sent me pictures of this and was like, oh, I just ordered this. It was either that or Gavin Jones-Davy, who said, oh, look at this. And I was like, I'm not buying any more Marseille decks. And then I saw this and immediately ordered it. So I love it so much. This is always out. This is another one that's always out now. This is the Marco Benedetti Tarot. Do I have the box? I do. This is another Game Crafters deck. So it's a self-published deck. And so he has a handmade version of that he does that's all gold and gold leaf. But this is sort of his quote mass market edition that he did for Game Crafter. And I love it. It is completely distilled, simplified, totally neutral. I don't know why I'm getting reversals in these decks. I don't use reversals ever anymore. Completely just blank back, red back, but I love just the sort of like the lines, the like just it's very like sexy lines. No faces, just these great sort of, and I've talked about this in other videos. Like, what I love about decks right now are really neutral decks that don't tilt the wheel or tilt the emotional tone of the reading immediately, so that the reading itself, the combination of the cards, tells me what the emotional language is. So I really like this one a lot. This is a little more kind of pre-Marseille as well. This is a little bit more inspired by pre-Marseille Italian decks, but I included it here just because it's where are all these reversals coming from? I must have dropped this or something. This is unacceptable. But I just love the simplicity of it. Again, I do wish there could have been an opportunity to maybe give us some more skin tones. It's not like they have faces, so it would have been easy to do. But people don't think that way, and part of the reason I keep talking about it is like start thinking that way. But I do love this. So I like to keep that out. It's one I reach for frequently. Gassman, that's just the box. Here's another one I love. This is another one of the Flournoy decks. This is the Jean Dodal. I kind of like this as much as the Noblette, but it's much larger and much harder to shuffle. This cannot be riffled. I just don't have hands large enough. I don't know if someone with massively large hands could do it, but it's tough. This one has slightly rounded corners too, which is interesting. Most of them don't. What I love about this is that the line work, because these are large cards, the sort of beauty of the line work. I know that people don't love woodcuts, but it's just, there's something so beautiful to me about like the variation in lines. I love the weird big eyes. You know, I love, see how like it's not a completely smooth curve here? Like those things really just make me happy. So this is a deck that I really love, and I'll go through, I love the sort of ermine back. I'll go through periods where I will leave this out and sort of give the Noblette a break. But again, it's just a little harder to shuffle, and because I like to do large spreads, I tend to go with the other one more often. But I do love this one a lot, and it just feels like tarot. You know, that's something about Marseille too that I've noticed in recent years. It just feels like tarot. It just feels like something so specific. So it's interesting doing videos like this because in essence the cards really look very similar to each other, but there's such subtle differences, and those little differences can really sort of charm or even turn you off. So these Flournoy reproductions I really love a lot. He's another one who's passed, but his work is still available online, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I had a backup copy of this. I have backup copies of decks. I've literally never lost a deck that I didn't deliberately get rid of. This is Lutero De Golover. It was given to me by a friend. I hadn't even really heard of it. But again, I really like it. It's another one that size-wise is tough to shuffle, but it's doable. I have mixed feelings about the borders. I've seen people trim it off. I think I wouldn't mind the border as much if it wasn't the same on every card. Do you know what I mean? Oh, stop. It's always spam. Who calls anybody anymore? But the artwork is great. Now, the book is in French, so I can't really read how this relates to Gulliver's Travels. But artistically, I think it's cool. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to like bring out a couple others. Damn it, Janet. So this is hard to get in the United States. You basically have to get it, I think, off French Amazon, which is doable. It's just a bit of a pain in the ass. There's another deck that came out recently that is only available in France, on French Amazon, and I just didn't have the energy to go through the process of ordering it. But I quite like this. There are, and again, I don't know the story of Gulliver, so I'm assuming that the reason there are black and brown faces in this deck is some way related to the story. So I don't know whether like that's problematic or not, but it is a deck that has, though it's 99% white, there are faces that do represent other parts of the earth, which again is another good thing even outside. And I don't think you really need to know anything about Gulliver's Travels to read with this, because it ultimately is a Marseille-style deck that I really, really like. I am tempted to trim it. I've just gotten lazy about modifying decks in my dotage. But I really like it a lot. So that was a fun gift. And I appreciate it a lot. Because of its size, it's hard to shuffle, which is another reason I've considered trimming it. But I don't know. I'm so lazy, guys. You go over there. Let's just give these some attention because they're here. These are two, they're not Marseille decks, they're Marseille Kissed. So this is the Seventh Sphere. It is by Labyrinthos, which has a handful of decks. They're very sort of interesting vectors. Vector artwork. There's two extra cards here, Tree of Life and Return. Those do not get used. Actually, this deck doesn't really get used, and I'll tell you why in a minute. It does have some guild, I don't know if you can see the metal sort of emphasis. It's a really pretty deck, and it has a really lovely color palette. The majors are not Marseille at all, but the minors really are very similar. And it's really pretty. It's very soothing. I really like, it's pastel, but the color palette is really rich. So it's interesting to be both sort of pastel and also rich. It's this cardstock. People like this. This is plastic. And actually, I'm holding it up to the light. You probably can't see because there's a window here, but I can see right through it. I hate the way it shuffles. It is too smooth. Now, theoretically, it actually riffles really nicely. But there's a lot of slippage, and I find that like I have a tendency to like drop cards a lot, or when I'm trying to shuffle, if I get a bad shuffle, they go flying because they slide against each other. So it really, though it's meant to be like a really nice shuffling experience, and it's also waterproof, so in that regard it's nice, I just don't like the way it shuffles. I'd rather have to work for a good riffle shuffle with the like right amount of tension and the right amount of slippage. Like that's just me. But it's pretty. This is the Marseille playing deck by Ryan Edward, who created the Maybe Lenormand. Big fan of this. I don't use it that much. Mostly, I don't know why. Because I have so many decks and I forget I have this. I love the artwork. There's something so delicious. Again, you're going to see a little bit more color diversity here, but not a whole lot. But it's there. But I love the playing card associations. I know why I don't use this more, because I have to think about what the correspondences are. So I have to like pause and remember that diamonds are coins and that spades are swords. So it's not that I don't like the deck, it's that I like to know immediately what I'm looking at, and I'm a little bit lazy about sort of remembering, oh, that's wands. So, I do not use this as much just because I really, like, I know hearts are cups, and you know, but it's like, I just think, what is it? And it throws me off my game a little bit. But I love the artwork. I love this kind of these playing card faces. Color palette's beautiful. I love the like freedom of the inks. So it's just a really beautiful deck. And if I used it more, I probably would have like instant recall of what's what. And it only takes like a fraction of a second, but still it's like, I'm very much about like, what do I see immediately? That's part of how I read. And so it does, the aces, remind you, but there's only 4. You don't get them all the time. But I really love the washes of the inks on this deck. Again, this is another, some of the cards will have a sword or a wand or a cup. Like that one does. I'm going to have to leave this out because I'm looking at it again and I'm like, I love this deck. I love Ryan's work. Why am I not using this more? And it's another deck that's nice because it's a playing card size, so you can do big spreads. And actually, if you read playing cards, this might be an interesting thing because you could read the pips like playing cards and then add the majors in. So you have that kind of liberty. Not that you can't do that anyway, but so Big fan of this. I was really waiting for this. I really would love one of his handmade versions. I just can't justify the cost, but it's so gorgeous. I was so excited when this finally came out. Cardstock's not my favorite. Not that it's not good cardstock. It's typical US Games cardstock. Because the cards are smaller, it's a little harder to riffle. It's not impossible, but it just takes a bit more energy. But again, I'd rather have this than something that's sort of flying all over the place because it's too satiny, finishy situation. So, and the book, so Ryan is a student of Camellia Elias, and the book is very terse and very like matter of fact, and it's got a sort of very fortune teller quality to it. So I really liked the guidebook that came with this too. So those are like the two I brought that aren't strictly Marseille. This is another Yves Renaud. This is the Claude Rochius 1754. These are both limited editions. This one was I think this was the first one I got that was a repro. And again, I wanted something that wasn't like cleaned up and modern, fresh, you know. Whoops, upside down. I just used this one for an Instagram post, actually. And I like the messiness of it. And again, it has like really nice blues. And I like the kind of, you know, blotchy, splotchy, like this sort of freeness of the inks. And it feels old. You know, I love the way like the blue leaks into like the sort of tan color of the lion. So this to me is really pretty. I really like the backs of this one. The fleur-de-lis feels very French, you know, and I have a lot of French ancestry, mostly Canadian, but it's just cool. I don't use this one much, but I wanted something that was this, and I got it. And I really like the Yves Renaud decks. I think they're just so nicely done, and the quality is really nice. I mean, these are collector's editions, and though you can read it, this I cannot riffle shuffle. It's just too, I can't get my hands around it. So this is an overhand. And I don't mind an overhand. It's just some of my favorite decks I can't riffle shuffle. It's just that they are harder. You have to mix longer to get a good mix. This, I don't know where the hell I got this. It's a Marseille from Lo Scarabeo, Anima Antiqua. It's a 1760. I really don't know. It's a reproduction. This was a limited edition. I have no idea where I got this. In fact, I forgot I had it until I was pulling things off the shelf. It's a limited edition of 3000, which weirdly isn't really that limited. Reproduction of created for Nicholas Conver. So I don't think it's the Conver, but it was created for the Conver Publishing. The back is really unfortunate. I don't know if you can see that. It just doesn't have any relationship to a historical reproduction. The cards themselves are fine. I remember these having like a really lacquery smell. They're among the messiest that I have, and I can't tell whether I like that or not. It's good. It's fine. You know what I mean? The cardstock's kind of nice. I just remember being disappointed when I saw this, but I don't remember where I got it. I don't know if this was like there are a couple times I've done Kickstarters for Lo Scarabeo and they kick in backstock of something. I don't know. I never reach for this, but I have it. So let me go grab the couple I neglected to bring down. And hopefully I will remember to cut this part out, but if I don't, you can just hum. Oh. So the one I'm not going to bring down is the Lutero Noir. I've showed that many times. It's a big, beautiful French Marseille deck with very like gory-ish images. This is the, I've talked about this one before. This is the Tarot de Marseille Millennium Edition. This is I don't remember who made this. It might be on the collectible card. I got this because I liked the sharpness of the lines. Oh, Wilfred Houdouin. I think the person who wrote this has a book that's been translated into English. This is an edition that I like a lot, but one of the things that bugs me is this sort of rediscover the original nature of the tarot. I've talked about this before. There's all this stuff about sacred geometry. I have seen zero evidence in all of the tarot histories I've read that the playing card makers of Marseille and other parts of the world had any interest in or knowledge of sacred geometry. Now, it's fine if you see it in the cards, but don't tell me it was original, because unless you can cite a source, then you're fucking lying. Sorry about it. But that said, there's nothing wrong with finding it in there. Just don't lie to me about that it was always intended to be there, because there's no evidence that's true. I've done this before, so I'm not going to go on that. But I like the cardstock. It's very kind of like yummy, a little thick, but it's just a very sharp production quality. You know, the lines are sharp. It's just very, like, feels very high res. So I like this one a lot. I mean, it's nothing different. So I don't really reach for it that much, but I do like it. I got this at the Reader Studio the first year I went. And it's packaged nicely, and it's beautiful, you know? I just don't buy the lie, unless you can cite a source, that sacred geometry was intended to be part of these cards. This is the one that I forgot, the Tarot Par Polka. Again, Marseille, it's Marseille inspired. It's not a Marseille deck, but I just wanted to mention it as one because it was sitting up behind me, and I had forgotten about this, so I figured I would bring this down too. So those are the Marseille decks that are in my collection right now. Yeah. I hope this was fun to listen to me like wander through. I really love these decks. I think they're beautiful. I know that people sort of find Marseille decks unattractive, but I really find them attractive, especially now. So that's that. This is just a little sort of hopefully entertaining divertissement, as the French would say. I have such a bad French accent. My ancestors would be so embarrassed. But probably for multiple reasons. Anyway, that's that. I hope you're good. Take care. Be good. We'll talk soon.